Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. The guy across from me is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy, and thank you for stopping by. This morning, we are going to dive into the breaking news. That is the FRT debacle coming out of Texas, because it turns out everything's not a machine gun, Tim. My shoelaces, my coffee mug, my hat, those aren't machine guns.
My
I
finger?
think your shirt's a machine gun. Your shirt's a machine gun. No, don't. You're not getting that kind of credit this morning. Nuh-uh. You're not that good.
How about Jerry Mitchell's? He's a machine gun. That man's a machine gun.
The closest thing to a human machine gun you could ever be. So maybe he is. Maybe he could be reclassified. Because after all, I mean, we have noted that ATF told us it's really the quality and the quantity of speed that you can release the bullets. It's not the actual machining.
Well, there's two speeds, it turns out. Not scary and scary. And so they're trying to find a standard person that they can go to and fire a gun in front of them and go, did this scare you, or did you find this to be okay? So they're working towards that. They'll get it sorted out soon enough.
Maybe that's the solution, Tim. We just need to infiltrate that committee. If we get in there, get some like-minded individuals, and we're not scared, their whole world goes up in flame. They'll have to back to the drawing board. Yep. Maybe that's the move. Right up there with your financing the entire GDP of the government with NFA taxes.
Right.
Oh, man. Well, that was an unorthodox intro. But you know what, guys? Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. We are about to walk through this, and we know that you're going to love this. So let's get into a decision coming out of Texas around the forced reset triggers. Tim, you have some experience in this realm about items being classified and then not classified, and then kind of that seesaw, don't you?
Oh yeah,
You're familiar with it?
Yeah, through GOA, we sued the Trump administration over the bump stock thing, and then of course this came along afterwards. And for those that don't know what an FRT or a forced reset trigger is, basically it's a trigger that when you pull the trigger, it mechanically pushes your finger back to reset itself, and then you keep a pressure applied to the trigger, and then it gets pulled again when the gun's ready for you to pull it. And so it's a timing act, if you will. And the ATF classified it as a machine gun, but it does not meet the statutory definition. We can delve into that a little bit later.
Oh, no, absolutely. That's exactly right. Well, National Association for Gun Rights v. Merrick Garland is the case that we're looking at. Okay, so this is coming out of Texas. You're going to notice a familiar judge here in a second, Tim, but let's get into this. I want to show the people what's going on. And some of the things that this judge said in this decision were just chef's kiss. So let's go to number 5, Mr. Producer. Let's bring the people in, because we're heading towards a conclusion that you guys are all going to love. So this is about standing. The defendants first argue that the individual plaintiffs lack standing because there is no credible threat of prosecution. Additionally, defendants, and by the way, defendants here is the government. This is DOJ. The defendants contend that they have no current plans to prosecute the individual plaintiffs, but this phrasing reveals the implicit threat that the individual plaintiffs fear. The defendants could change their current plans at any time by deciding to prosecute. I think that, in a nutshell, is what we've been ranting and raving about for years now, decades almost.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, these are the games that they play, right? And it's great that the judges seeing through the ruse, right?
I love it.
Because it's no different than the law that they passed in, New Jersey? And everybody was on edge. Because it's kind of like the other end of the spectrum, right? Where they pass the law and then they go, well, there's really nobody injured yet, so we can't really challenge the law in court, and everybody's kind of up in arms about it, but that's just kind of the way the legal system works. Yeah. Well, here we go on the other side of that, right? So,
Same in San Jose in California with the mandated insurance and the fines and the fees for even having a Second Amendment.
Yeah. You got that too.
Same thing. So I love two things about this, Tim. One, that we can talk about this in such a calm manner this morning, because this is like blood boiling for me 97% of the time, but I feel like early in the morning, I think we can break this down. We can parse this out,
We're getting there.
And we're going to make it happen. I feel like the blood's starting to cook, but I think we're good right now. So one of the things that just boggles my mind, and this is, I wish every single person in the United States could see this, not just for gun rights, but just for the state of hypocrisy of government sometimes, because they campaigned on something around infringing upon the rights of the population. Then they pass said legislation infringing the rights of the population. Then when they get hauled into court because it's unconstitutional, which we said it was the entire time, they go, well, it would only be unconstitutional if we enforced it, and we're clearly not, so we're okay. Yeah. Why'd you pass the law? Mind your business.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make, on any level, that does not make any sense. And the judge, honestly, I love what the judge said there with the whole point where he's like, well, I mean, you're saying exactly what you're going to say. The idea that you happen to not charge this person points to the fact that this is a problem.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. It's like somebody standing in front of you all smiles and stuff, but you can see the big stick they're holding behind their back poking out from the top of their head. You know, it's like, hey, how are you? Like, you're about to get whacked with a stick. You know, it doesn't matter. There's a smiling face in front of it. And that's what they're trying to pull here.
No. That's exactly right. But, you know, another bit of irony here, again, you can't have AR-15s. Why not? Because you could do something. I had no intent to do anything. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just in case, we better go ahead and just take that from you. What?
Something about pre-crime? Yeah, I think they made a movie about something like that.
Something about precogs and Minority Report and all sorts of weird stuff. But when it's the government, no, it's fine. They can have that tool in the toolbox. They aren't going to use it, Tim. Relax. Yeah. Are you being a conspiracy theorist? I tell you what.
So we passed a law saying if you voted Republican ever in your entire life, then we're going to put you in a gulag. But we're not really going to use that law. We just wanted to put it on the books because, you know, it was kind of a fun read. You know, we thought it would be good in law school. Yeah.
We had to justify our own existence somehow. I mean, we've got like 3 months of the year to fill up. This is a big chunk of our paycheck. We got to do something, but we will never use it. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, forgive me for being disbelieving. Yeah. I find that so mind-boggling that that's actually the defense that they go with consistently.
Yeah.
But
well, sometimes you know it works, I suppose, with some judges. Just not this one.
I know, but it's not this one. But it just blows my mind. But this judge did come in with one of my favorite things in the world history, and even Tim, he referenced Alexander Hamilton. I mean,
bless his soul.
This must be an evil judge. But let's see what he said, because obviously this is very bad. Very, very bad, because all founding fathers were very, very bad. All right. Sarcasm implied if you're new. All right. So here we go. This is number 6, Mr. Producer. Alexander Hamilton stressed the importance of judicial review over the other branches of government. Quote, there is no position which depends on clearer principles than that every act of a delegated authority, contrary to the tenor of the commission under which it is exercised, is void. You want to know that translated into modern day speak? That means, hey, if you're not doing your job, you can't enforce it. That's not cool. Stop it now. Judges, get on this. I love that. And that's from Federalist number 78, Tim, for the record.
Oh, awesome.
For the record.
Good old Federalist papers.
It's mind-boggling because even the founding fathers, even people 200 plus years ago were like, yeah, I can see this problem coming a mile away. But they don't need to see the individual issues. They just need to see the problem.
Well, but you're implying they had a crystal ball. They didn't. That's why they didn't see that firearms would evolve technologically over time. They just assumed we'd have muzzleloaders for the rest of human existence. They weren't very sharp people. They were kind of dumb. They had the big dumb.
I regret showing you that I didn't even think about that.
Sarcasm once again, folks, for those of you that maybe
yes, very, very sarcasm.
Very sarcastic.
Dripping from the words. Yeah, I think Alex H has a point. Just saying. He probably wouldn't like the executive bureaucracies that we have going on running amok right now.
No.
Across the board. You name your 3-letter agency.
Yeah, there's a good chance if if the Founding Fathers came back tomorrow, they would have us all hung for treason just because of what we've done to the great body of work that they fought so hard for. Oh,
but
my
a
goodness.
hypothetical, because that would be mean, and in real life, that would never happen to us. We would never talk about that. But that's a hypothetical, of course.
It is. I don't think
you are always.
Yeah, but we haven't seen too many people spring back to life after 200 years. So probably safe to say it's just a joke-ish.
Yeah, but look where we're at, Tim. Look at the house in which we reside. We must be cautious.
Yes.
You know, you never know when someone from 200 plus years ago is going to spring up from the ground and then do something that we said. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Yes. Catches you every time, Tim.
It does.
Catches you every time. Well, let's go into this judge some more because we're getting near to the conclusion, and this is where we get to tie it all together. I'm so excited. So, Mr. Producer, can you hit me with number 7, please? We've heard a lot about this act, but we're going to hear it again. The Administrative Procedure Act. This is the one that the ATF and the DOJ, we've been fighting over ghost guns and frames and receivers and pistol brace. It's all right in here. The The Administrative Procedure Act instructs courts to, quote, hold unlawful and set aside agency action found to be in excess of statutory jurisdiction, authority, or limitations. Plaintiffs contend that the ATF's regulation broadening the machine gun definition is an arbitrary and capricious expansion of the agency's authority. And before we say anything, Tim, shout out to the word capricious. I love that word.
Yeah. It's very capricious. They
and now we can go about it.
Yeah, this is wording that's been used with braces and things like that. With ATF making just arbitrary rulings, right? So it's legalese, but it's absolutely true. Because what they've done, going back to the FRT and the forced reset trigger, the statutory definition of a machine gun is very, very specific. And basically it just says, in layman's terms, you pull the trigger once, you get multiple actions of the gun. It fires multiple times for one function of the trigger. One function of the trigger would be pull the trigger, release the hammer, hammer fires the gun, and then continues to fire until trigger is released. The FRT does not do that. The FRT fires once for one function of the trigger. Now you're mechanically being helped by the reset pushing the trigger forward, which is normally done with a spring when you release your pressure with your firing finger. But the FRT just allows you to keep your finger on the trigger. But every time that gun fires, it's being disconnected, it drops to its sear, and then when the trigger's pulled again, it fires. It is the very definition of a semi-automatic. They just don't like the fact that you can keep your finger on the trigger through the process. And so they expand the definition and say, well, that's a machine gun too because it sounds like a machine gun, kind of like what they do with the bump stocks, which also does not function more than once. The trigger gets pulled every single time.
And you're going in the direction of where this will end up. This is the most beautiful part. God, you are a sage. Brilliant. This is where we're going with this entire thing. We've been talking about it on the individual cases. We've been hitting on the pistol braces. We've been hitting on the frames and receivers. And now we've got FRTs. They're all pointing at the exact same problem that the ATF redefined existing congressional law from executive fiat. That's the entire problem. All the temporary restraining orders, all the injunctions, everything that's been granted has been sourced back to that one individual problem of executive bureaucracies overstepping their bounds, usurping the power of Congress. That is why this is so massive, Tim. Because once we get into this, one of these things falls, they all fall. Yeah. Everything they've done over the last 2.5 years, it's a house of cards. And it's all built on a very shaky foundation of basically rewriting existing words through redefining definitions.
Otherwise known as Chevron deference, right? So,
look at you.
Yeah. So these agencies were basically given the power to manage laws that Congress passed, but they were supposed to have a very narrow, band of power there in what they could do. If there was ambiguity in the law, then they could make a decision as to which way the intent of the law was. Well, they've completely lost the whole intent of the law thing. They don't even care about that anymore, as evidenced by things we've talked about in the past. And now that they just go, well, we got this thing called Chevron deference, and so we don't like the current definition of a machine gun, so we're just going to go ahead and redefine it. And then in doing that, we're going to assign criminal penalties as if you had actually violated the NFA, which we just expanded the definition of. And so this is... I understand why the court gave Chevron deference to the agencies back in the day. It was done to try to solve a problem. But you ever heard of the phrase, give them an inch and they'll take a mile? That's precisely what's happening here. Anytime you give government a little bit of power, they're going to try to blow that out to give themselves more power. And that's what they're doing here. And this is what the judge is slapping them down for.
Yep. And that is such a good analogy of an inch to a mile. I personally like You Give a Mouse a Cookie. I like that one too.
That's a great book.
One glass of milk.
I read that book.
Oh,
every
it's
night.
So good. Yeah. It's so good. Twice a night for some. On rough nights.
Dad jokes.
Dad life. But yeah, literally, we're talking about something that you are looking at the exact reason that our government was structured the way that it is. Everything, all the confines on the existing government structures that we have, the founders put in place because they knew human nature would tend to go this way. It was never something about, we want to prevent kings and we want to do this specific action. The entire point was they understood that, I don't want to get too religious, but they understood that men are imperfect. They understood that men will crave power and men will do whatever they can to maintain that power. This is a perfect example of the way this is shaping up in our government controls. It just so happens that we have a constitution that says no and trying to prevent that. And Chevron deference is a way, it's a workaround. Like you said, it was meant to solve a small problem, which has now been blown out of proportion, and it's being used as a cure-all for everything, from border policy to Second Amendment infringements to loan applications to rent agreements. The entire thing is just screwed up. That, is my opinion, is why the SCOTUS picked up Chevron deference, and they're going to rehear the entire thing next year. Yeah. I'm so amped.
Yeah.
I'm so here for it.
Yeah, I agree. They need to take a look at it because they have run totally amok with it. And, wow, if they strike down Chevron deference, or if they put these agencies back in a bottle and start to undo some of the things they've done, it's going to be wider and more broad in scope than just the ATF. You're going to see all the alphabet agencies get, they're going to have a reckoning. So this is a big decision for the court, right? So if the court does take this on and they rule against Chevron deference and its use, they got to know that it's going to cause a big shakeup.
Oh,
because it's going to change it's going to change how business is done in D.C. Because
that's exactly right.
Chevron was intended to handle a non-political ambiguity in a law. What you're seeing now is these agencies using Chevron as a political tool. So if they can't get something done legislatively, now their leaders and the parties that they happen to favor within these bureaucracies, when their leaders say, hey, make this go away, then the Trump administration just goes, okay, ATF, we've been instructed to make this go away. We're just going to legislate bump stocks away. And they did that with braces, and they did that, with the FRT trigger. They're just trying to, we got a political agenda here. We're not getting anything done in Congress. Use Chevron deference, ATF, and get rid of that. And that's what they're doing. It's become political, and it's just gone too far, and the courts have to see that.
Oh, no, I could not agree with you more completely. In fact, if you dive even deeper on that, I personally believe that the idea of Chevron deference and the interpretation of executive bureaucracies, it is only fueling the separation in our politics, in our country. Because, and hear me out on this, if you've got one side of the aisle that says this is the way that it's going to be done, this is what has to be done, this is the moral and ethical road we're taking, the other side says something completely opposite. Well, our system is meant for that debate, to where we grind in debate and nothing happens legislatively until compromise is made and everyone is represented, at least in the discussion. That's the way the whole process is originally made. But what these organizations have done, both sides of the aisle, I'm not only blaming Democrats, Republicans do this too. They've said, screw you, I'm going to use the executive bureaucracies and do whatever I want, and they've bypassed the demand for Congress to negotiate and politicians to negotiate and actually talk with each other, which leads to further extremes. I think this is one of the linchpin issues that, if rectified, will do a tremendous amount of healing in our nation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's just my opinion.
It causes people not to have faith in the government, right? Because you're dealing with these bureaucrats that are assigning criminal penalties to political agendas, and this is something that just has to stop. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. It's just a hot mess all the way around, and just needs to be tackled by the courts. That's enough of that.
Yeah. So get on it, court.
Yeah, fix
Have
this.
At you. Drop some more APA, administrative procedure, on us. Anyway, then me and Tim will have something to talk about. So now comes the point, Tim. We've had our rabbit trails. We've delivered the goodness. Now we get to the coup de grace, the cherry on top, the conclusion. Let's get into it. Mr. Producer, this is number 8. Conclusion. For the foregoing reasons, the court grants plaintiff's motion for temporary restraining orders to preserve the status quo until September 27th, 2023, or until such time that the court rules on plaintiff's motions for preliminary injunction. The court orders, I love that word, the court orders that defendants, this is all DOJ, along with their officers, agents, servants, and employees, are enjoined from implementing or enforcing against plaintiffs Carey, Spiegel, and Wheeler in any manner the ATF's expanded definition of machine gun that this court has determined is likely unlawful. Oh, Tim, how many times have we heard likely unlawful coming out of judges' mouths?
Yeah, smack. It's like, basically they're telling the government, it's like, yeah, you can pursue this, but I'm telling you right now, you're getting nowhere in this court. They've done that a couple of times lately. It's like, just go home. Without dismissing the case outright, the judge is just saying, you don't really stand a chance here, government. So you might even want to, reevaluate those life decisions your parents talked about. But it's like you can't give any more stern warning. But the government just doesn't care. It seems like they just press on. Like, was that a threat? I don't know, Bob. It could have been a threat. Let's go to court tomorrow. We got to get this. It's like, are you really this dumb? or is Biden just that powerful where he's like, you will get this done, or the laser eyes come out from Dark Brandon? It's so
not
weird.
The laser eyes. Yeah. No, like legitimately, you're 100%. It could not be more direct. Now, here's where this is interesting. And again, going back to that example of all of these little executive actions the ATF has taken and the DOJ, the similarities, that's almost verbatim the same language that they got from the Fifth Circuit Court around the pistol braces. I mean, that's as close as you're going to get without copying and pasting.
Yep. They literally said in the brace thing, you really don't stand much of a chance here, government. So you might want to go back and do a little bit more homework. Yeah.
And so what did they do? The ATF went to SCOTUS, and the SCOTUS said, okay, hold on. Calm your stuff. let's parse this out a little bit more. But legit, like this continues to happen. It's almost like where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
I'm just a guy. I'm just saying.
It seems to me like these judges are getting tired of this nonsense, right? Because they realize what we've been talking about for some time. These groups are doing this, and this agenda is being pushed. And it's just they're flooding the courts with this nonsensical stuff that they should know better, right?
Yes.
And think about a judge, a brilliant legal mind, gone to school, seen every type of shenanigan in his courtroom or her courtroom that is imaginable, and then you have the government coming up acting like a bunch of children, and they can't even take a hint. And it just keeps happening over and over. They keep coming back, bringing these stupid cases, and the government keeps getting shut down and thrown, out on their ear outside the court. Like, get out of here with that. And they just come right back. They dust themselves off like, well, let's go back in the court and try this again. It's just like, man, it's a very definition of insanity and stupidity. But I think the judges are just getting tired of it, and you can see that in these decisions.
You can see. I think you can see it.
You can see the frustration.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, you have it across the board, and we'll wrap here in a second. But just to kind of go down that road a little bit longer, this is not just from the Fifth Circuit, though. I mean, like, to your point, you're seeing judges in Oregon say very similar things. You're seeing some judges in New York around the sensitive places thing. There's red flag laws that are having similar language come out in decisions. I mean, legitimately, if you are not paying attention to all the different cases that are going through the system and all the different localities of the United States, you're missing a really big story. I mean, like, that's why we cover these things, because if you zoom out and you see the tone that these judges are taking with these cases, I mean, it's interesting because the ones that are defending the Second Amendment are very antagonistic towards, you're not going to win, what are you doing? And the ones that are very sympathetic to the gun control cases, which we've seen a couple of, they're coming out, and it's so telling because they're going at this angle of twisting words and like putting their arms and contorting their entire language just to arrive at a point where they could maybe get this over on somebody. It's very interesting to see the juxtaposition. That's at least my opinion. I mean, it's fascinating to me.
It is. It's been really interesting the last year with these court decisions and the comments coming from the judges and the rulings that we're getting with Bruin and things like that, and it's just been an interesting ride. But it kind of goes to the point that we believe that we are making progress in the 2A community towards getting where we want to be. Now, there have been setbacks along the way, and sure, the anti-gunners have had their own little few victories here and there. But the whole point of this is we have to stay the course, get politically active, and fight because appointments matter. Elections have consequences. And if you don't get your folks in, if you can't get motivated to get up and just go vote, then you don't really have a right to sit back and complain when things don't go our way. We got to be politically active. And when we are, we get judges like this and we get decisions that are constitutionally based. All right, enough of that, folks. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, please consider just subscribing and tell other folks about the Second Legacy. Get them over here. If you'd like to be on the show, well, we'd love to have you. There's a link in the video description below. Follow that link and we'll get you on the show. We'll have a great conversation. Thank you for watching The Second Legacy. We'll talk to you guys soon.